Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Kasa podcast. Today, I'm super excited. We're going to have a show about why it matters, why it's important. There's so many things we hear about almost on the daily, right? Some of us switch on our TV and we hear, oh, the interest rates are that, inflation is that, oh, social media has done that. This is the news from that country or there. And it's like, why should this matter to me? Today, a bunch of ordinary everyday young people are going to be talking about things that ordinary everyday young people normally don't talk about and why those things are important, right? And so I have Efia Yeboah and Kwesi Frost in the building. How you doing, guys? How you guys doing?
You're doing great, man.
Kwesi
How are
was
you?
about to stay hydrated. I saw you with a bottle of water and it's like, oh, no time for water now. We'll take
No,
a water break. And
stay hydrated. Don't stay thirsty, man. You can't be
yeah.
thirsty.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about staying hydrated. We're going to be talking about how hydration breaks are going to affect the World Cup. Why the time the World Cup is being played is important, and why people's FPL seasons are going to be halted in the middle for the World Cup. We're going to dive into all these things. But, guys, before we get into the conversation, like I do every week, how was your week? If yeah, well, how was the week for you? AY, you're muted.
So can you guys hear me?
We can hear you
Oh my
now.
goodness. Well, so I had a great week, right? It
Hmm.
was very stressful. Had a big event, but fortunately everything went well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Congrats on your big event and everything going well.
thank you, thank
Since
you,
you're trying
thank
not
you.
to share it with the world, I
Did
will
you get
just
married?
leave it
Did you
at that.
get did you get married or something?
No, I had my thesis oral defense
There you
Oh,
on
go.
okay. Oh,
Which is
Friday.
kind of a big deal, you know. It is a big deal.
Yeah,
it is a big
yeah,
deal.
yeah. So it went well, even though it was very intense for like
Hmm.
2 hours. I thought it was gonna be like an hour and then we are done.
Hmm.
I don't know, but yeah, people kept talking and asking questions for like 2 hours and over. But yeah, I passed and everything is fine. So
Congrats.
have a good
Congrats.
week.
Mhm.
Newest master in town, Mr.
Not
Frost.
yet.
And guys, some of you may know this, but others may not. Yesterday was Kwesi Frost's birthday.
But
It's
And so
Friday though. It's
oh,
Friday.
Friday. Friday was Kwesi's birthday. He celebrated some yesterday. So, hey, happy birthday. Happy belated birthday from us here at the tribe.
yeah,
I know Kukwa also celebrated a birthday. Was it the day before or on the same day?
The
Kuka was
day
on
after.
The day after.
Kukwa was
So, Kukwa
Kuka
was
was
yesterday.
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 And so, for
Yeah.
fans of the show, Kukwa also celebrated a birthday yesterday. And so, today's show is going to be dedicated to these two amazing tribe members, Kwesi
Yeah.
Frost and Kukwa. Happy birthday from us here at the tribe. And Kwesi, how did you
Thank you.
celebrate this birthday?
Oh man. I usually don't. I'm not really big on that, but
Hmm.
it's a special day, so
Mhm.
I don't know. I just worked and grabbed some dinner, and then I did celebrate yesterday. I went to crush my buddy's 5-year-old daughter's birthday party. So like the first few hours were for the kids, the rest were for the adults.
For the
So
adults, y'all turned
and
it
Yeah.
into an adult party.
yep, and there was
Good.
Wache original Nemo Wache there. So man,
The Watcher man himself.
No,
that
what you
was
man
like
himself.
chalet.
I'm
That was
guessing that
like
was the best birthday gift you received.
ever. I swear to God, that watch
Happy.
it. We always do it, man. But
Awesome.
it was good week, man. We made
Good.
it. We
Good.
survived. So
Wonderful. And then we're
yeah,
here, Fun Day Sunday. And we're
Yeah.
yep.
about to get into these fun conversations. But before we do, right? Um, Mr. Song is in the building. Song is saying,
Ah,
Efia
thank
looking
you.
gorgeous as always. She
Thank you.
always
Thank you.
is looking gorgeous. Um, Mr. Song said, congratulations on your defense. And
Thank you.
gradually you're getting to the end of the tunnel. We can't wait to celebrate you here at the tribe
I can't wait.
whenever you graduate. It's almost time. Tribe members, let's get a fierce graduation gifts ready. Let's start polishing our shoes and ironing our steaming
Get
our
your
clothes.
clothes
We're
ready.
about to go. Michael is saying a fear, and there's an emoji. I think it's all about how gorgeous you're looking. But we're about to have a conversation around why it is important, why things are important. And this thing came up because, I'm sure for most people like myself, if you don't miss the news, there's so many things that get thrown at you, right? You hear things like, oh, inflation is going up. Oh, gas prices are going down. And for the average person, some of these finance and economic things basically fly us by. For a lot of people, it
Mhm.
doesn't have a lot of real world effects, or at least
Yeah.
we're not able to see it. And so I know you guys are not experts at finance, but you're experts at being
No,
real world people.
Chrissy is an
No, no,
expert in finance.
I'm an expert of being
Chrissy is a
a
financial
human being.
expert.
Like,
So yeah.
Exactly. You may not need a lot of high finance training, but at least you know how these things impact you. So today we're going to talk about why these things are important to us, how we feel, what we feel when indicators are telling us, hey, you see, what interest rates are going up or what that's going there. Let's talk about some of these words. First, I would like to talk about generally. What are some of the words you guys hear a lot? And which ones do you guys pay attention to when it gets to the business segment of the news? I know a lot of people look out for Dow Jones. And for so many people, they don't know what it means if the Dow is up or down or, S&P
Mhm.
500. What do you guys look out for? What are the indicators you guys are looking out for when you get
Mm,
your economic news?
I think basically it's inflation, right?
Inflation is
Like
it
we,
for you?
yeah, because
Okay.
that is where you you
Mm-hmm.
have some impacts where prices of goods are
Mm-hmm.
increased. And
Mm-hmm.
so if your grocery used to be $100 a month, now you're spending like $200 or
Mm-hmm.
250, and
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, now I'm feeling this
I'm
thing. What
feeling
is
the
going
pinch.
on? What is
I'm feeling
happening?
the pinch.
Yeah.
Huh.
So I think one main thing for me is inflation,
Inflation.
and yeah, gas prices too.
Gas
Yeah, that
prices.
yeah.
I think inflation and gas prices would be cousins, right?
Yeah.
Gas prices tell you what direction inflation is going in, right? I
Yeah.
think it's one of the most in your face representations of inflation and these numbers or these variables. What do you look out for, Mr. Frost?
I'm gonna be selfish here and
Uh-huh.
say, telling me it's the interest rate, man.
Interest
It helps
rates.
me. It keeps me up at night
Okay.
Interest
because
rates.
Okay.
and
The
the reason
investors.
Interesting.
is, see,
Mm-hmm.
the reason for me, and I'm gonna be selfish, is I have
Mm-hmm.
student loans. One of my
Mm-hmm.
loans, it's a variable rate, right?
Mm,
Which means it
mm.
goes up.
As the
Usually
interest
don't
rate
come
goes up.
down because those
Mm-hmm.
bankers are bastards. Like they just want to make your money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the rate going up means one of my payment is gonna go up a little
Go
bit.
up.
And what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
My paycheck, I'll be losing more of my
More,
paycheck to paying
Ish.
more,
loan,
more.
right?
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
so me, I kicked myself. I gambled and I lost.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
because at that time it was, the world wasn't like this. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't too much
Mm-hmm.
turmoil. So I'm like, you know what? Let me go with
Rates are
variable
not
for this
good.
one and use
Mm-hmm.
fixed for that one.
Mm-hmm.
And it came
Oh,
back to bite me, right? So
oh.
now it's like I have to go back to the drawing board and man figure a way to hedge that because it's same but Charlie. It's it's that's personally me. I
Oh
do
boy.
I check it. The
Mm-hmm.
moment I
Mm-hmm.
hear Paul say something like to my heart like oh drums like
Mm, mm, mm.
like
And
damn
it's
like
rather it's very
it's
exciting you brought those up.
man.
Interest rates. We're going to be touching on some of these topics. Again, we're not going to do a deep finance or economics lecture here. That's not what the show is about. We're here for fun. But for a layman, right?
Mhm.
We would have to be able to break some of these principles down and discuss them and tell viewers why we look out for these things. And I'll start with a first word, inflation. Um, Rather basically or simply, what is inflation?
Um, the rates at which prices of goods services go up.
Hmm.
I think
Hmm.
that would be the basic definition.
Yeah, so the rate at which prices are changing year on year,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And for most people, right, we don't, well, I don't do that, right? We go to the shop and we have a basket of goods we buy, right? So we have a grocery list for most people. You go,
Yeah.
you pick those items and you go and you pay for them. And for some of us, the way we experience inflation is we don't change the things we're buying, but
Mhm.
we realize that at the
Mhm.
checkout, the rates, the price is higher. It's like
Yep.
I bought the same number of pineapples and the same number of bread, like
That is
pieces of bread
true.
I buy. Why is it changing? Right. And so for the ordinary man, the lay person, it's that increase in prices for the same basket of goods I purchase and the rate at which
Mhm.
it's changing year on year. And AY, you look out for that. And you
Mm-hmm.
did talk about gas prices. And again, gas is another quick way
To measure,
to
check.
indicate, right?
Yeah.
You fill up your half a tank of gas and it's like 15 cities. And then the next day you go and then it's 20 cities and you're like, oh, that is the rate at which it's changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And why? Okay, so the first question is, you look at inflation. How do you anticipate inflation to hit? Whenever you hear the rates have gone up to say 8%,
Mm-hmm.
when do you expect to go to the supermarket and see this change in your daily life?
Generally, right,
Mhm,
I would follow it after I've seen that there's been changes in like
mhm,
the cost or the amount I
mhm,
spend with groceries. So I
mhm,
grocery shop every month. I
mm,
have fixed things that I buy and I have some things that are
mm,
variable. And
mm,
because I buy them over time,
mhm,
I know the price for my snack. I know the
mm,
price for the juice, my favorite juice. It's something I know.
mm.
And then I go and all of a sudden I see that this thing used to be $5 and now it's like $7.
It shock you.
Like in a month, what is happening?
Interesting. So you hear the news and then you go out there, or you don't even wait for the news. You
No, the
just
thing is, it's just I just hear it's there. Like inflation is at this rate.
Mhm.
I don't expect it to start feeling the impact immediately.
Immediately. Interesting.
Or
Well,
maybe it might be because I go to grocery shop most often, like monthly. So
okay.
when you hear about it within the month, you've already shopped, and it's just
Okay.
one thing that you might buy, but
Wait,
you don't really
Hmm.
have a whole
wait,
shopping
Interesting.
list.
you
So
go a
Interesting.
month.
whenever it's time for you to really shop, you're like, I buy this snack for like $5 and now it's
Hmm.
$7.
Mm.
What happened?
Interesting. And so,
Wait, I
you
have a
say,
question. If you go
Mhm.
grocery shopping it monthly, you don't buy perishable goods. I mean,
I
an
do.
apple is not gonna
So
last you. Banana won't
so
last you a
like
month.
banana like this is something I can just walk in and get.
and
But
pick up.
those
Oh, okay.
intermittent
Hmm.
shopping is just like
Oh,
you
no
don't
wonder you
spend
have to grab a
much.
shopping cart and walk around for
But
Yes,
2 hours.
you don't shop much when you have to do those ones.
but
Yeah.
funny enough, I don't know about you guys. I think those ones easily add up. The ones you
Hmm.
go get a shopping cart and do your monthly shopping, right? Normally you have a budget. But those, let me quick stop by Walmart real quick. Let me stop by Tesco real quick. Let me stop by Costco real quick. Those ones add up. You're like $15 here, 70 here, 18 here. And then at the end of the week, you're like, I went to Walmart and spent like $150. And it was just on random things.
Mm-hmm.
And so one thing, well, we're not here to offer financial advice, but I really love for people to discipline themselves in terms of how many times they enter the grocery shop, right? Make a list and go there and get it. When you do that, quick stop, quick stop, quick stop, it adds up so
No,
fast.
because there are some things that you cannot, get the whole month, like bananas, like
Hmm.
fruits,
Hmm. Hmm.
veggies.
Hmm.
So for fruits like this, my banana after like 3, 4 days, yeah, that's it. I have to
Hmm.
go and get something also. You can, buy a lot of bananas.
Yeah, that's true. But again, if you're going to buy some of these things, but you mentioned something that was interesting to me, or at least from where I sit, and which a lot of people feel the same way. We see the indicators, we see the rates, we see these figures, and we go out to the market and we are expecting them to hit us. But most of these economic indicators are reports from the previous quarter. And so when you're dealing with inflation, the number you're seeing has already gone through the system. That was the change that occurred, not what's going to occur. And so
Hmm.
for some of us, and that's why this show is important, indicators like inflation have
Mhm.
already gone through the system. You've already paid that new price. And so for inflation, we're behind the eight ball, right? It
Mhm.
passes through the system, they measure the change, and they tell us, well, that was the change in the third quarter. And by the time we get third quarter numbers, we'd be in the fourth quarter. And so for even people who are paying attention, when you hear things like inflation, your approach should be, we've already been through that. However, it should make you on guard for what's coming next, right? The fact that it's last quarter's reports or last quarter's numbers doesn't mean I could go reckless. Well, it's not going to be at this rate anymore. Well, it could go up or down, right?
Don't they have projections like, oh, inflation is projected to be this in the third quarter or like
I
something
mean,
like
there's
that?
projection and there's actual. So
Yeah, and projections often, I mean, indicate economists will tell you don't look at the projections. They are bound to be wrong because you're dealing with people who can change their mind, right? If we're
yep.
expecting prices of cars to go up by 5%, what consumers would do then is, I'm going to wait it out. I'm not going to buy. So then your projection would stop people from spending and the price wouldn't
Mhm.
actually rise. And so uh, normally indicators like this, unemployment, inflation, and all this, they tell you what happened in the previous quarter so that you can
Mhm.
plan for the quarters ahead. And for businesses and people who run businesses, right? You don't want to look at these numbers in doing your inventory and you doing your projections for the year, right? You want to use them as a guide to plan ahead. You should be 4 quarters or 5 quarters ahead. If you're waiting for this last quarter's inflation numbers as a business, then you're a little behind. And so for those of you listening who have your own businesses, these are very good numbers to be looking at. But I would suggest you project or you forecast like 4 or 5. So you're buying your things in ahead of time, especially if you're importing stuff where it's going to be like 6 months and all that. You have to factor these in far before the numbers hit, right? Else you'd
Mhm.
you'd be behind, right? You'd be losing a lot of money. And yes, that's inflation rates and gas prices. And Kwesi talked about interest rates. Kwesi, what are interest rates and
Charlie,
why do we
the
care?
cost of, well, we should care because cost of borrowing money just went
Cost of
up when
money.
it,
The cost of money. Interest rates
it
are
goes
basically
up.
the cost of money,
Yeah,
But
huh?
yeah.
funny enough,
So
I think
we should.
interest rate is only, you should only be concerned if you're investing. That's what I've always thought,
No, I mean
honestly.
everybody
Like, because I
should
do
Investment.
not
worry.
invest or I don't have any um
Hmm.
loans or anything that has to do with borrowing money or saving money, I feel like, I don't really need to know what this is. I don't
Man,
need to know.
Yeah.
it affects
That
a
that
lot of stuff. Like
but
Mm-hmm.
Kwesi, that is generally a lot of people's positions, right? And
it
this is
trickles
why we're
down.
having the show, right? Why
Yeah,
should it matter if interest rates are going up when I am not investing? I'm not an investor. Why should I care about interest rates? So why should we care as ordinary people, Kwesi?
I
Why should
mean,
we care
you
about
should you
interest rates?
should care because if Quincy owns a watches shop and I have loans, right? They're
Yeah.
not fixed rates. They're variable. The rates, right? I have seen in bad loans. For instance, I made bad decisions. I took some bad loans. I opened a watches spot, but the watches spot is great. You guys are buying watches at ten
Mhm,
dollars, right?
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Now my loan has went up. The cost of me doing business just
It's
went
going
up.
up.
So
Hmm.
if I keep selling watches to you a fiat for $10 or 10 CDs, right? What's happening to me? I'm losing money. And
Hmm.
nobody
Oh
goes
my
into business to
gosh.
lose money, right?
Mm.
So now I'm gonna start charging you 12 or $13 for the
Hmm.
same $10 scoop of watch it, right? So I can make the loan, keep the lights on and other stuff, and we all win. So you're gonna be like, oh man, she's so greedy. He just, but then it's not me,
Yep.
sis. The rates
Interest
went
rates.
up and it affected the whole business because I had
Eh,
loans and
mhm,
I'm buying stuff. So imagine the guy that I buy the goat meat from has the
mhm,
same problem as me, right?
mhm,
The goat meat price went up,
mhm.
tomato went up, the
Mm-hmm.
peppers, the beans, seller, everywhere, all my vendors. If they had the same business model or the same approach as me, they have loans, they had to pay the light bills, whatever. Everybody price went up,
Mm.
right? So now it's like all of it coming together,
Yeah.
right? And then it hits me in the face like a sting. So now I can't keep selling watch at
Mhm.
$10.
Exactly. So
Honestly, I've
so
not thought
So
of
you
it
should
that
this
worry
way.
about
again, and this is
interest
the beauty of the show, right? I am enjoying it because we're learning how these things come together, right?
Mm-hmm.
AY, like we said, inflation is in the past. Interest rate, however, looks to the future. Interest rates tell us the cost of money in the system. And businesses need money, especially like Kwesi was saying, when you go for a loan, you're often given two main options. You pay a fixed rate over a long period of time or a variable rate. Normally, the fixed rates are high, right? So that the lender, the person giving you the money, eats up any interest hikes or, fall. So because of that, interest rates, fixed rates would be higher. For example, I think the fixed rate, 30-year fixed rate loan interest on housing is around 7% right now. But when you go for the variable rate, you get around 3%. So your cost is cheaper, but then it adjusts as interests go
Mm-hmm.
up and down, right? And
So
in
wait, how high could it get? Let's say if you go, you have a
Zimbabwe
mortgage.
high, Zimbabwe high. Let's pray it
no,
doesn't go
no,
down.
and it depends. How high can it go also depends on where you're starting from. So you'd
Yeah.
see that interest rates, so across the board, interest rates in the US, for instance, during the pandemic and right after the pandemic was really low. It was almost zero. And there's been four consecutive quarters of interest rate hikes, right? The last one, which was on Tuesday, the chairman of the Fed told us is going up by three quarters of a percentage point. That's 0.75, right? And people are like, man, that's a very big rise. But to others, it's like that's not a very big rise. But you're looking at
Wait,
where.
in a period of what? Like in three
No,
months?
that's for the next quarter. Interest rates have gone up by point three 0.75 of 1 percentage point, right?
Mhm.
And so for things that started around zero, now we'll be hovering close to like 1.2, 1.3, right? But that is Fed's rate. If you have a rate from, say, your lender, when you go for a credit card, they tell you your rates are 24%, right? Now that's also going to go up because it's variable. It's variable, right? And so
Yep.
once interest rate goes up, your 29 for every dollar you take from the credit company now goes up. So if you're a businessman, all the loans I'm going to repay, if they are variable, if they're not fixed interest, now that interest also goes up.
That's
So
wild.
what Kwesi is saying is you hear one indicator like interest rates go up, and instead of looking to the past, you look forward. Now the price of borrowing money is going to go up. So businesses are going to have to make up money to pay that increase. And so you should expect that prices are going to go up,
Cost of
right?
business just went up. Cost
So
of doing business.
everything sort of trends after the interest rates, right? If the economy is doing so well, if there's so much money in the economy, governments like to slow things down, and they slow things down by discouraging consumer spending, people going out there and shopping. So once interest rates go up, people hold on to their money a bit, and then things steady out, the economy cools off a bit. But in terms of inflation is the number that tells you what you've been through. Interest rates tell you where you're going, kind of. And this is why it matters, right? And that's why
Honestly,
the
I
show.
would not really pay attention to it if I didn't hear this. Because all the time, like, oh, people that actually listen to interest rates and all that are investors. Like
Mm,
people that are doing business, people that are into something. I'm not
mhm,
in there. So I don't
mhm.
think I should it's not like I don't care. I don't really pay much attention to
Attention
it.
to them.
Yes, like how much rise and a reduction in the rate. I don't really pay attention to it
Hmm.
because I don't have any business in there. But now I see it actually affects
Hopefully,
me.
by the end of the show, not just you, a lot of us will change our mind and start at least, and
Mhm.
not like actively, hawkishly waiting for your Fed boss or the Bank of Ghana or anybody to tell you what their rates are going to be. But at least when you hear it, you know what to expect. Like, okay, if you give me the inflation numbers, well, this is what it's been through, right? If you give me interest, this is where we're going to be going. So interest starts hiking, you're like, oh boy, prices are going to get tricky, right? Interest rates
Mhm.
start falling, you know that hey, people are going to start spending because the interest rates they are going to be paying on their credit cards are going to go down, and companies are going to pay less for their loans, and so people are going to there's going to be a lot of money in the system. But
Yeah.
I think it's a fair bit of economic stock, right? We can put a pin in this. We've tackled two main things and why they're important: inflation and interest rates. The couple ones we could have gone into, but we can leave that for a financial. I think
Mhm.
we would agree with you that. But in moving on into other more interesting things, This is the Casa podcast. In case you just joined, today we're talking about why some things that happen around us are important. Just a few minutes ago, we found out why inflation figures given to us by finance ministers and financial teams across the world are important. We also talked about interest rates and why we should care about those, what it actually means to me, right? I'm not a big company, I'm just little old me. Now we're going to go into something that really walks in lockstep with finance and economics, politics. Loads of young people are like, listen, count me out. I don't want to be part of this
That
politics
is me
thing.
right
I'm
there.
going
Count
to
me
bed.
out.
You
I
should
don't.
no. We're not. Why should we count you out? Why no?
It's
Nobody's
just
counting you out.
too it's just too much to deal with, right?
No, it's
People
the way
bullshitting.
people. No. I think it's
Honestly, it's just for
people.
me. It's really too much. Initially, right? It was
Mhm,
very interesting. I had a friend that would tell me about wars that's going on, international issue between Israel, and tell me history. It used to be very
mhm.
interesting to listen to,
Mm-hmm.
and then you listen to current politics going on. Is like everybody's being greedy. Like everybody
Eh.
wants to, and it just gets tired. I'm like, okay,
You talking
just
about
count me.
Ghana?
Yeah, mainly Ghana. Just
Well,
count
let's
me
talk
out.
about politics in general. Well, let's try and do the same thing we did with finance, and let's see if we can get into certain. So, whenever you're listening to political news, right, domestic, international, what are you guys listening for? What are some political indicators you guys are paying attention to? If you mentioned wars, what else are you guys looking at? Are you guys looking at, say,
I mean, me.
collaborations, events happening? Like, are you guys looking at like COP 2022, right, in Egypt? Are you looking at things like the World Cup? When you hear politics, what do you guys look out for? AY, what are you hearing when you're listening to political news? What are you looking out for?
um, honestly, I barely listen to political news unless
Mm-hmm,
it's someone is telling me about what is going on.
mm-hmm,
Like you tell me about politics because you're into politics.
mm-hmm,
I have a friend that is so invested in wars and
mm-hmm,
you know, international relationship between
mm-hmm,
countries,
mm-hmm,
like how this country is mostly put in Russia,
mm-hmm,
Israel, and how America is doing this until you just bombard you with things that are not interested. So I don't
mm-hmm.
listen to it unless someone is telling me about it.
Okay, okay,
So
okay.
I just try to take myself out of politics. I am like, just
Qu-
count me out of this.
Quincy, what do you listen out for? What do you listen out for?
Um, I think my main thing is policies that
Policies. Hmm.
individual countries
Mm-hmm.
policies that they bring that
Mm.
whatever. That's my main concern because it trickles down to the guy that's your neighbor, trickling down to all of us, right?
Mm.
It
Mm.
affects us. So it's more of policies for me, trade, like countries. So for instance, Ghana, who we trading with, like what are we
Mm-hmm.
producing? What
Mm.
policy are we putting in place
Mm.
to fix the place? Because if we trade with people, we'll get money,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
We're selling something, we're buying some from them.
Hmm.
We do the whole trade. What policies do we have on education? Like, are we gonna revamp the educational system because it's so archaic? Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
so old. The question, I'm not saying it's old. I'm just saying putting out there. If we think it's old and there's no much value that we're producing in the current environment, the
Mhm.
current universe we live in,
Mm-hmm.
are we
Mm-hmm.
gonna change it? Right?
Hmm.
Because if you're not growing, you're dying. Right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
Interesting.
are we going to do that? Are we going to look at our housing, urban planning, like environmental? Let's not pollute our waters. Let's not mine here and there. Let's keep the water clean. Let's keep
Hmm.
forests. Let's grow trees.
Hmm.
Those are the things
You look out for.
that I look out for because
Hmm.
those I think are the basics that everybody that wants to go into politics, right? Because if we get the
Mm-hmm.
basic right, we can get it complicated. Then we can try to fix the complicated stuff. But
Mm. Mm.
if it looks
Interesting.
like a lot of people are want to do complicated stuff but can't get the basics right,
Right.
or
Yeah.
don't want to look at it. Don't want. Let me
Mhm,
rephrase. Don't want to look at the basics. They're
mhm.
so fixated on
The big picture
the
and the big
big.
stuff.
I want to do
Interesting.
something really
Hmm.
big. So
Hmm.
people
Hmm.
Yeah.
like the God complex. People think
Hmm.
I'm God. Like I did that. Slap my
Hmm.
name on it. Like
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
no, let's fix the basic stuff, and the rest will take
Interesting.
care of itself. Like
I
And
like.
that's what
again,
I look at
I
Kojo,
for.
like. I'm
Kojo,
listening.
that is my problem, right? So
Mhm,
for me, it's not even about I would want to hear good policies, but
mhm,
what happens is that it's mostly talk.
Lip
Like
mm,
you
service.
you don't see anything. Every day somebody's
mm,
telling, oh, we want to build this road, we want to do,
mhm,
and it's always we want to be like,
mhm.
something, and you don't see anything.
Never we
Okay.
are
Never.
like
Okay. But again, you guys brought up some interesting paradigms, I would say, in politics, right? AY said, well, when she interacts with people who care about politics, some of them are looking at international relations, people are looking at wars, people are looking at how these things play out. And then Kwesi said policy. And policy then tends to look on the inside. And right there, you guys have laid out two main things to look out for in politics. The two main things that affect politics: your internal politics and the world
your
you live in, the
extent. Yep.
global system within which you live.
Mhm.
And I think most people at least understand those two. It's the weights we put on them. In some countries, we put so much weight on our domestic policies and how we expect them to shape the world we live in.
Mhm.
And others put so much weight on international policies. And I'm going to lay out something I feel has become a big problem, at least in Ghana. And my listeners in Ghana will back me up here. Ghanaians currently are seeing things that are affecting them domestically, like the cost of the dollar, like the way things are going on in the country, policies that are not right. And they are complaining about domestic issues. And unfortunately, there's a leader who also sees the effects of geopolitics, like global politics, the political system, and the pain it's going to put its individual countries and member states in. And he tends to often lean heavily on the impacts of the political environment or the international systems, the impact is having on the life of ordinary Ghanaians.
Mhm.
Once that disconnection occurred, it's become a president who is out of touch and citizens who are not trying to even pay attention to the things he's saying. And so we have this political conflict within our country where a president mounts every stage and talks about the effects of COVID, the effects of the war in Russia, the effects
Right.
of, and there are people who are like, fix our schools, fix our economy, fix. So it's give us answers to our domestic issues. And this man is providing international issues, one for which he has no answers, but which do not address the internal issues, the domestic politics. And I feel this has become one of the main conditions or things that make a lot of people butthead, and it's really affecting international politics because we've seen, at least in the last few years, I'm sure you guys have been paying attention to the news, you've seen far right nationalist candidates win a lot of elections because they try to take the conversation from the international arena and make it domestic.
Yep. Yep.
Make America great again, right?
Yep.
Brexit, like things that are very far right. Let's solve our policy issues. Let's come up with ways to develop as a country rather than let's be global. Let's go out there and interact with the world, right? And so, for a lot of people who pay attention to politics, I'm sure this thing comes to play. But because Chrissy said domestic and AY said IR, I'm going to flip the script because I'm just fortunate to have you two on different sides. Kwesi,
Mhm.
for your domestic policies like
Mhm.
housing, like the environment, how do you
Mhm.
think international politics plays into these things? The domestic tools governments have, the things our political leaders have. What are some international things that would interfere with the, provision of healthcare, provision of housing? What are some of these things?
I mean, like we said, we are unfortunate, right? We had COVID, wars. Like wars will affect every. It
Mhm.
doesn't just affect the two countries fighting, right?
Absolutely.
Because
No.
for instance, if all the wheat from Ukraine, right, if
Mhm.
20% of it comes to Africa, right, and
Mhm.
let's just even I'm gonna stick to Ghana, right?
Mhm.
Hypothetically speaking, 20% comes to Ghana,
Mhm.
and then we use that to produce a lot of food, a
Mhm.
lot of basic needs like
Mhm.
food.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now the
Bread
supply is cut.
cut off.
You're
Mhm.
gonna feel it domestically,
Mhm.
right? We're gonna
Mhm.
feel it. The shortage go,
Shortage.
just a shortage.
Mhm.
Demands go high, supply is
Mhm.
low, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
So there's a whole the mayhem going on and everything, and people are gonna think, "Oh, you the leader. Why you not doing anything?" But what they're not asking is, why didn't we start 20 years ago growing this thing, right?
Mm.
So
Mm.
when it comes to domestic policies, right?
Mhm.
As much as everybody want to say, "Oh, COVID hit and whatever," blah blah blah, right? Look at let's use America for example too,
Mhm.
right? Everybody is going through the same inflation, right?
Mhm.
But because domestically we've done stuff, we've gotten some things right. Even though gas is expensive, right? My wife was make watch it the other day, and she spent like 100 and something just for the two of us groceries, right? Before
Mhm.
we would pay like 60. That's
Mhm.
including meat, everything,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But we were still able to pay for the 100 and something, right?
Mhm.
Because domestically, like we've done certain things right, like
Mm.
I have a job, she has a job,
Mhm.
whatever. Cause it's expensive now, we get it.
Mhm.
Let's switch back to Ghana. We haven't gotten a
Mm.
lot of things right.
Mm.
So when your house is not already in
You
order,
wait, wait, wait,
right?
wait, 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 wait. I like how you're sneaking back to go domestic. I am trying to say stick to it. I know you think domestic issues matter. And I know, I believe that.
No, 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 no. But
Don't
I'm giving you
don't sneak back in. No, stay out and make the argument. I like
right,
what you did
right.
there. He started and he's like trying to make you see, and then he
I
slides
swear,
one
I'm not a
in to go
politician,
back
man.
domestic.
I know, I sounded like a politician, but I'm not a
You just
politician,
did. You just did. You just tried to sneak a fast one past me. But I'll
right?
stop you right
But
there. I'll stop you right
but
there. But I don't want us to
okay.
lose sight of some of the important things you talked about, though. The war in Ukraine, for instance, has far reaching consequences beyond the shores of Ukraine.
Oh
Ukraine
yeah.
is probably the first or the second largest producer and exporter of grains in the world. And since the war, I think there was a blockade in the Red Sea because Russian ships were attacked and Ukraine was blamed for it, and nothing was going out. No grains were going out. So your cereal, your Weetabix, your bread, everything is on hold. Like it's not
Hmm.
moving. Last week, I know Russia came back to the drawing board. They're still negotiating, but they allowed 12 ships to leave the harbor, right? 12 ships. And these are carrying grains to the international market. These grains, however, are not even going to be there in time. It's going to take like a couple of months for these grains to enter economies. But what this has effectively done is as long as this fight is going on, as long as this war goes on, we're going to have disruptions in our provisions, in the provisions for grains that are very key components in the diets of many countries, many countries. The bread we eat, the Weetabix, everything. And so
Hmm.
the international supply, what this war is doing is it's creating a crunch in the supply of grains internationally. So Nestle is not getting the grains it needs to put things on the shelf. So the amount of stuff that are coming out are going to go up. And so the reason I wanted you to argue the international cases, leaders are not completely wrong if they blame these attributes. I know you, and this is why you were trying to sneak in. It's
Oh
institutions,
yeah. I
it's
mean,
getting
No,
the
no, no,
systems
no.
right.
They need to be blamed.
No, no, no.
They need
AY,
to be
nobody is
blamed.
here to absorb anybody from blame. But I'm just saying there's a connection. But AY, you also talked about international stuff like the
Mm-hmm.
wars. Like you mentioned, well, when I get my news, I I don't know if you like it, but my professor is a wars guy. I have a lot of people who do conflicts and study these things. Not that they are excited when it wars occur, but it's avenue to study, right? So a lot of international relations scholars are looking at things like, climate, the global approach on climate. I know the next climate summit is going to be in Egypt. Very sharp contrast from where it was last time in Scotland. I don't know how many people are going to show up and all that. But AY, how does domestic policies play out in the international arena?
Hmm.
What are the effects of domestic politics on global stuff?
That would be hard because you're asking me like I do politics. I don't.
No,
But
not
let's
that you
look
do
at
politics, but that's where you get your news, right? And
yeah.
these
So for
international stuff.
me,
Mhm,
mhm. So for me, it's more like listening to what's going on around us. It's not
mhm,
really what is going on interiorly because
mhm,
most of the interior aspects is like, oh, we want to do this, we want to borrow this money, we want to build these hospitals, we
mhm,
want to, it's always we want to, and it's
mhm,
not nothing like this is what is happening. Like
mhm,
this is what we decided to do, and this is how it's happening. So for me, I'm thinking, um, how much, no, I'm thinking, how do you call it? Monetary policies that we
mhm,
have
mhm,
within the system is really going to affect how we relate to the international markets,
mm,
right? So for like a place like Ghana, I know when you want to send money dollars in there, their interest rate for treasury bill is so
mhm,
high,
mhm,
and so people would want to invest more in the country. However, the city is low, and it's just complicated. I just don't know
mm,
much about how it would relate.
mhm.
I just don't like listening to interior news.
Listen,
Okay,
listen.
so
Let me
for
slide some
okay,
real quick.
let's see if you can stay
Oh
out.
no, no, no! I was just
All
adding,
right,
sneaking
let's
something
hear.
in. The next
Mm-hmm,
time you buy your ticket to Ghana, right?
mm-hmm.
Look at the
Oh yeah,
tax break. Look at
oh
the tax
yeah,
breakdown.
the breakdown.
Oh,
Yeah, the
Look at the
government
tax
great.
of
breakdown. A
Ghana.
lot
I
of people
missed
don't even
that.
pay
Yeah,
attention
people
there, but
don't.
that's one
Yeah,
thing that I don't know.
yeah,
I'm just weird like that.
yeah,
I keep my
yeah.
eye
It's
on
true.
what's going out. Like it's crazy. But
Mm-hmm.
when you look at your Ghana ticket,
Yeah.
look at the taxes, and we could talk
Yep.
about that later.
Yep.
It's just
We can definitely.
yeah.
Kojo,
But
that is
again,
Kojo,
let's
that brings me to taxes within the system. Like
within systems.
oh my god, like domestic tax, like the tax we have within the system. So like you have a business, right? You ship things, the taxes you have to pay at the harbor. It's crazy. Like you look at the tax, like why are we paying for this?
Also, let me if yeah, let me
Hmm.
answer. Let me tell you.
Okay.
Let me sneak this in. The taxes Ghana has some form of high taxes on certain things. The problem with Ghana is
Hmm.
they go for the low hanging fruit, right?
The low hanging what do you
You
mean?
bringing a car through the harbor is easy money for them to collect. It's easier, right, than other taxes they can collect. So they
Hmm.
tend to go for the low hanging fruit, like your taxes on your ticket. The plane lands, it's guaranteed they're getting that money. They don't have to do much work, chase
But
people
don't you
around,
think that is going
whatever,
to
right?
affect external investors? Like the taxes
I, I
people
mean,
pay.
I mean, that's not. I
Like
don't
if
think
I'm
so.
supposed
The
if
investors
I'm supposed
coming
to do
in,
some
they're not shipping
production in
cars in.
Ghana, and then
Uh,
I'm supposed to import certain things to the port, and I see, okay, look at the tax. How many people want to come and
no, but
build
I
a
mean, if
business in
you
Ghana?
are, I don't know how those big investors do it, but you can negotiate stuff, right? I don't
Oh,
know how
okay.
logical Ghanaian politicians are when it comes to, because I know everybody wants to get their V8 and whatever, right? So that
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but in a sane environment, if you bring in a factory to Ghana, I mean, you can negotiate with them. They give you a tax break because you about to employ Ghanaians, right?
Hmm.
In a function of, I don't know how it works in
Okay.
Ghana, but I know in a functional environment, right?
But
Even
then
the
these are
US,
some
they
of the
have.
basic
Okay.
things that are
Hey,
within a system, right? That is
hold
going
up,
to
guys.
affect.
Hold up. AY, I don't know how. Okay, yeah, there are basic things in the system that would
No,
affect
no, not
international
basic.
stuff.
I'm sorry.
No, no, but you're not wrong. I like that you came back to the question I asked because you people take the opportunity to just jackpot away. You hear go, no, you just go. Now let's come back. Let's center the conversation. Again, the question was what are some domestic things that affect things
Mhm.
on the international scene? And I think the flip side of the Ukraine-Russia war, in terms of the effects it gives the countries domestically, the pressures it applies domestically, it's how countries in the international systems actions are also affecting what we're seeing globally. And AY talked about money, borrowing, and lending. Let me point out some of how domestic politics is affecting or shaping the Russia war. When the war started, a lot of these European countries and a lot of Western countries imposed sanctions, right?
Mm-hmm.
These sanctions were to deter, the war going on for a long time. They
Mm-hmm.
discourage escalations. But what is going to happen is countries are no longer going to spend the money they would spend on aid, the tax money that would help developing partners, right? All that money is not going to go. It's going to be used to, on wartime spending. You see, these countries are donating help. They're giving basically assistance, medical, technology, weapons, and everything to Ukraine. That money is coming from somewhere. That money could have been used to build bridges in developing countries. They could have been working with developing partners, farmers, organizing training for other developing partners. Those are not going to go anymore. And so domestically, the international thing that is going, the war that's going on is going to affect developing partners. And it's also going to affect developed partners, like the people who are going to be partnering with other countries building, these roads and all these infrastructure. And it's going to discourage borrowing and lending among countries. There's a war to think about. About 2 weeks ago, Europe, in anticipation for the cold winter ahead, decided to stockpile gas. And so what they were doing is money they would have spent lending to other countries, helping other developing countries. They did not do that. They pumped that into energy and they bought so much oil. And they got to a point where they are okay. They've bought enough oil to make it through the winter. But what that says is developing countries who went onto the market and had to buy gas would be paying more for it. One, they're already not getting the grants and the loans and the development and investments that would have come. But the small money they have internally generated, they are going to have to be competing with higher bills, right? You look at domestically, things like Joe Biden putting a price floor for oil from drillers and people who go out there to drill oil, is that he has basically set world prices with an international policy. The US is saying, in the war, we're not buying enough from China. We're going to release our strategic reserves. So they release 1 million barrels of oil every day from their
Which is
strategic
nothing.
reserves. But what is happening is he's also encouraging domestic drillers to increase production. And to encourage increase in production, he said, I'm going to buy it at this price. So he's already set a price, the minimum price at which he's going to buy it. So what's going to happen is these oil manufacturers or drillers in America are not going to go onto the international market and sell their oil if the international prices are lower than the domestic prices. Right? So for international companies to compete, for countries like Ghana to compete, you should be paying the price floor. And in most cases, even outbidding the US government. So you would see that, well, you're listening to the news and it's like, oh, Joe Biden announced that he's going to buy oil at this rate for the next 2 years to fill up his strategic reserves, right? And so companies are going to increase production, but none of that production is going to hit the global shelf because domestic prices are so good. And so sometimes domestic politicking can really affect international.
But Kojo, that would be like a country with so much power like the US, right? Now let's talk about a developing country with its domestic policies. How is it going to
So
affect?
it's not only for a country with big power, right? And I'll give you a good example. When it comes to world cocoa production, Ghana is a big country. So in terms of economics, big countries are redefined based on whatever we're looking at. When it comes to production of cocoa, Ghana is a big country. Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire combined produce about 65% of the world's cocoa. What that means is 2 out of every 3 cocoa chocolate bars you're going to get in the world depends on these 2 countries. So when it comes to cocoa trade, They're not price takers. They can set, and the government of Ghana has a price floor. Basically, that's what we also do. So you don't see cocoa farmers in Ghana going to the international market and selling their cocoa bags. The government sets a price floor, and they're like, we're buying this for it. And so internationally, all other producers of cocoa have to meet Ghana's bag, the price of the bag, right? It was until recently that La Cote d'Ivoire was offering more money so people would take theirs there and sell, which is illegal and it's to be discouraged. But what I am saying is it depends on the commodity and who is producing it. When it comes to like cobalt, some Central African countries are like powerhouses. When they say we're not mining anymore, there's not going to be an iPhone 15. And so like these are big players, right? But it's just that thanks to international trade and countries having advantages over others, you're not going to be the boss in everything. Like when it comes to grain, the US would sometimes work with countries that are bigger grain producers. When it comes to cocoa, for instance, they work with cocoa producing countries, right? You could be the US, but we can cut off your chocolate supply. So then countries work a lot more together. But these are some of the things. When you are listening to the news, when we're listening to the news and the government of Ghana says, okay, suddenly a bag of cocoa is going to go for 2,000 cedis. Most people don't care the effect. They think, oh, the local cocoa producer is going to make more money. Globally, now we're setting a price because we're so powerful in the cocoa business that what Ghana does has ripple effects across the world. And so domestic politics also plays a very crucial role in international politics. But for most people, we don't see why it matters. And
Yeah, because
once
it's
we
just
get
too much, too
I think
much
I
going
get
on.
Ifya's point.
Mhm.
If you correct me if I'm wrong. I think Kojo Ifya is trying to say that whatever you said is accurate in a functional environment, right?
Mhm.
But in reality, Ghana don't really
No
have
function.
that much power, like to
Um,
I think that's what or am
no,
I
they do.
that's the point. I think
No, no,
Reality,
no,
there
no,
there
no,
are
no,
we
some
they
get
there are
do.
some
we will get
changes that
bullied. We
No,
get
no, no, no,
bullied in
no,
the
no, no,
whole
no,
cocoa
no,
thing,
no, no,
right?
no, 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 no. We don't.
you
Believe
think
me,
so.
we don't. Oh, we don't.
Because some of the farmers were complaining. I watched there was a documentary. I didn't finish watching it.
There, there,
Actually,
there,
I have to go
there
back
are
in.
functional problems in the structure, but when it comes to because no Ghanaian goes on the international market and says I'm going to export cocoa, right? The government basically buys up everything. And so
Yep.
if we don't have the advantages we think we deserve,
Okay,
look
so
to
I
those
get it now. I get
institutions.
it. I get it. The government is buying it dirt cheap from they're
I
bullying the
am not. You
farmers.
cannot say that
But
on
then
my
Oh,
show, please,
right,
please,
right,
not on
right.
my show.
Again, that
We
is
we
why
we
I
have
just
just
do
presented
not
people the
want to talk
details.
about politics, because
It
like
makes no, no, it makes
there's
sense. I
so
mean,
much going on.
I have to finish the documentary. I'll come back to this.
And
I have to
and
finish
once
it.
you're
Yeah.
done with the documentary, I'm going to shamelessly plug myself again. I have a paper on cocoa trade, right? It's published. You
Oh.
can just Google it up. I talk about how exchange rates and cocoa trade, especially between Ghana and the rest of
Mhm.
the world and Cote d'Ivoire and the rest of the world, function. Just go read that paper and
I
maybe,
want to.
maybe
Yeah, I'll read it. I'll read
again,
it.
shamelessly plugging myself.
Send me, text me
I
the
definitely
link.
will send you a link, and for those who
Yeah,
are interested, I'll just probably add a link to
yeah, you
the
should. I want to read it.
in the comment section, and you'd read about exchange rates and how big players still play big. It's just that yeah, the ordinary Ghanaian might not see this play out because now we move on.
That's crazy,
Yeah, yeah.
man.
Yeah,
Politics is
uh,
just
Let's move
not
on.
for
Let's
me.
move
we're
on.
moving away from politics. Why it looks
We
like
should.
politics is not the thing for you. There were so
Uh-uh.
many things I wanted us to touch on and why they're important to us. I wanted us to have a conversation about social media, but we're running out of time. Social media and why the social media landscape should be important to young people. Why should we care? Why should we care if Elon Musk buys Twitter? Why should we care if TikTok decides to do that or if Instagram decides to do that? Um, we might take a quick stab at it, or you guys want to talk about why sports matter. I would leave this to you guys in the
Uh,
studio. Social media,
Mm,
sports.
I mean, social media matters
social
now. It's
media should
part
we
of
should.
life now.
Okay.
It matters now. So it's you
Okay.
can sports
Okay.
matters. Sports it used to be Um,
Sports is not real.
personal
Sports is not
fund.
a
Now
real
it's
What
place
are you
business.
talking about?
It's
because
What
the
is
way
real?
bets have been destroyed
it's
today,
business now,
sports
and
is not a
people.
real place.
No, sports is
Okay,
real.
let's talk about
So
a few of these hot topic news that came out in the social media arena. Number one, Elon Musk buys Twitter, brings the sink in and fires everybody,
Not
and goes on a
everybody.
hiring spree. And he comes back and he fires some more people. And he is going on a um you work at Tesla, you're great at Tesla, so let's go do social media hiring spree. Hopefully it will get to my turn. And Elon, if you're watching this,
Do you work at Tesla?
I can work at
Do you work at
I can
Tesla?
work at Twitter. But guys, what does this mean to us? To the ordinary user of Twitter, why is this important? Why is Elon Musk takeover an important thing? Why should we care?
Hmm. I think we discussed this some time ago on Spaces, I guess,
Mm-hmm,
where we talked about, he buying Twitter was all about free speech,
mm-hmm,
people being,
mm-hmm,
given the opportunity to say what they want to say, no
mm-hmm,
censorship and all that. And so yeah, it's really going to affect how we interact on the space, how what we tweet, the
mm-hmm.
people we have to deal with, the things we have
Okay.
to contain, because now
Mm-hmm.
everybody can say what they want to say. Now it
Hmm.
means that we would have to be more tolerant. You see, the space, I don't think it's going to be so much of a safe space anymore.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, we'd
mm,
have to tolerate a lot of things
mm,
if you're not going to
That's
be
mm.
you're not going to be
be
reprimanded for all the
account.
things you
Okay.
say. No.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. You have a rather well. We'll get into whether or not these will be global expectations. Crazy. Why should it matter?
Um, let me see. Because I mean, before they had a whole team that does fact checks and all that when people
Mm-hmm,
tweet
mm-hmm,
nonsense and
mm-hmm,
lies, right? So if
mm-hmm,
now if I don't know if he buys it and I don't know he's playing, he's saying it right, saying it and doing is the two different
mm-hmm,
things. But for
mm,
instance, now if he scratches that and say, okay, let's open the floodgates, right, and let everybody.
mm-hmm,
I think it should matter to you and it should matter to him too because if you say you start spilling lies, right?
mm-hmm,
Political lies, whatever that can cause chaos, and there's no fact checking. I mean,
mm-hmm.
we all losing. So yeah, it
Hmm.
should matter. It should. It should. It
Interesting.
should. It should matter to
Should be
everybody that
important to
uses it,
everyone.
right? And
Hmm.
then it should matter to him too, because if you open the floodgates, you allow literally everybody and anything in, right?
Mhm.
So if you allow people that are too extreme on one end of the spectrum, and
Mm-hmm,
I own the company and I have values and I do ads, right?
mm-hmm,
And you put my ads with something I don't agree with,
mm-hmm,
maybe we weighs the good and the bad. Like okay,
mm-hmm,
for every X number of people our ads reaches, right? We do
mm-hmm,
analytics. How many people are actually patronizing our stuff? Is it
mm-hmm,
worth the hustle, the headache that can come with our
mm-hmm,
loyal base boycotting our product and
mm-hmm.
Mhm.
stuff like that? So it doesn't. If you say it don't matter, then I don't know. It matters from
It
whichever angle you look at it. It
But
matters.
matters.
he's looking
Hmm.
at another angle where you pay $8 for
I was going to
is
come
it
to
a is
that.
it a blue tick or something?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
So
mean,
the
if they're going to
verified.
lose money in advertisement,
they
they're going to
might
make some money off
subscription.
subscription.
So
Yeah.
I was going to share the story and how these things developed and where would see if where we think it's going to go happens. But very briefly, right? Not in any particular timeline, but just to give you a brief overview of how this happened and why Kwesi's concerns are valid, right? I think for a long time, especially after the 2016 election, there was a lot of calls, political calls for some censorship on social media, right? Some people shouldn't be allowed to say basically whatever they want and get away with it. And I think one of the things, even for the developers of Twitter, did not really take into consideration was the proliferation of bots. Like bots took over Twitter, especially in 2016. Like bots were tweeting like mad. Like they take one and human beings, users of Twitter, even the most loyal, avid, hooked Twitter tweet people who use Twitter would barely tweet 50 tweets in an hour. Bots were churning out 400, 500 tweets an hour. Engagements, activity, right? And so there was a lot of organizing, and politicians felt it was the um, free speech. Unfettered free speech was a bad thing because you can't just lie to people, and it has real world effects, right? You lie about someone being the devil or drinking children's blood, and people show up in their house with hammers, right? These are real. And so there was a call for censorship because people were leaving Twitter on the mass. It almost became a bot only zone. And so Twitter decided to go on this thing where they're massively clamping down on bots, and you'd hear some people be like, I lost a lot of followers in one night. They're kicking away the bot, but it still has a lot of bot issues. But then the censoring became official when Twitter itself got into it, and it's like, if you say something that's bad, especially in the pandemic time, when you give out some COVID misinformation, they're going to label it and ask you to remove it or retract it, right? They're fact-checking people. And one thing, at least from his Elon Musk's perspective, was that they were censoring the right more than they were censoring the left. How people feel about that, if you don't know how this show feels about that, please watch the last 2 episodes. Cancel culture. We went deep into cancel culture, but it felt to him as though a lot of right-wing voices were being censored. And I think that for him, the last straw was when his favorite parody account was suspended. Babylon B. It's a right-wing parody account. Just does tweets funny stuff. It's trying to be funny. It's satirical, but some of the comments are, edgy. Some people would call them racist, anti-Semitic, extreme right wing, stop killing babies, kind of arguments and funny stuff. But again, it's a parody account. A lot of left-wing parody accounts exist, right? Where they troll the president, they'll troll everyone, especially the MAGA faithfuls were getting trolled all the time. And so it led to that exodus of everybody going to Parler, and then he tweeted, listen, we need to bring free speech back. And so it's like the joke then took shape. He did a poll, and finally he announced he was going to buy Twitter. Then he looked at the books and he realized, man, there are too many bots in here for this to be worth anything. So he's like, I'm not going to buy it. So he tried to pull out of the deal, and Twitter executives were like, we're not having this. You said you're buying it, you're buying it. So they sued him, and the courts compelled him to buy it. And that's why he came back and he started firing everybody. People didn't understand, but these were the people who forced him to buy a company he almost didn't want to buy.
Yep.
And so there was
No, I don't
way
think they were
going to last.
involved in that, could you?
No,
The CEO was supposed
the
to
board
get
and the
a lot
CEO were
of,
the people who made him buy, because he said, give
and
me
they
a
were
list
going
of
to
all
make
the
money.
bots and actual users. And they're like, no, we can't give you that. You want to buy it, you buy it as is. He's like, take out the bots. And at least they tried to take out the bots, because the court had, so when it went to court, I think the first time it was dismissed because the judge was like, you guys go figure it out. But then the bot argument was really strong, but then you can't really distinguish between the bots because they still make ad revenues, right? So they have a number of users and they sell those users to the advertisers. And so bot or not, that's how Twitter makes their money. And so he came in, one, to make people free again, to make people tweet again, say whatever you want, But then he's tweeted again after he purchased it that, hey, the fact that I said I'm going to let everybody speak doesn't mean it's going to be free for all. He talked about bringing the people who have been suspended back, but he came, he's like, we're going to do it through the common sense approach. You'd have to demonstrate that you've reformed, that you're no longer going. So there's so many things he said before he purchased the app, right? I'm going to let the bed free. And then he came and he realized he can't make the bed free because advertisers will leave. And then they're like, okay, if advertisers are going, how are you going to raise money? Because he has to pay about $1 billion annually on loans. That is known, right? And he's like, okay, then we're going to pay $20 per verification. And I think a lot of people got back at him. I know AOC and everybody tweeted back at him, right? You talk about free speech, encourage free speech, and you come and free speech suddenly has a price, $20. So it's no
There's no
longer
free
free.
lunch.
It's twenty
There's
dollars
no
worth of
free
free.
lunch.
And then I think the pushback came, and I think he responded to one of the tweets. Listen, how about $8? Like, how about we go down from 20 to $8? So now this $8 thing took off, and everybody's making fun of the $8. But realistically, he needs to find a way to make money. The app as
You
is
have to.
doesn't generate any money. You're only selling ads. And if he opens the door and encourages free speech, like we see was saying, advertisers are going to look at who they're advertising next to, where the advertisements are landing, and pull out of the advertisement deals. So he can't let everyone in. And so I don't know realistically if some of the things he talked about is actually going to translate in the product we're seeing. Because I think on the outside, maybe he didn't take the money considerations in, but
He
now
didn't.
he can't make money if he goes the way he promised. Whereas bring everybody back, tweet whatever you want, let's go free for all, town square kind thing.
Well, at this point, I just hope he doesn't cancel spaces, right? He can decide to take it $8
Oh,
for whatever he wants to do, but he shouldn't cancel spaces.
we
Oh, AY
add
is
some
speaking for
ads to
herself
it.
at this point.
Yeah,
Probably add
I'll
some
just be
ads
selfish.
to it.
Add some ads to spaces.
Yeah, in the middle of the space, we'll
Do
pause
you
20
know how
seconds.
annoying it would be?
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
So someone will be talking and then we'll just pause.
Or maybe on the top, the Jumbotron, you
Would
can
have
put. There's
ads,
so many ways they can they can revamp it.
revise it, and put some ads
Mhm.
in. I'm not
Yeah,
saying you're
yeah,
giving
yeah.
Elon any
Cha-
ideas, but boy,
no. Change the interface and
and make
like
ad placements
he,
easier.
yo, when money needs to be made, people get creative, man. It might not be nice. Remember when Snapchat came? They've changed it so many times. They did a
Mm-hmm,
lot of
mm-hmm,
interface
mm-hmm,
updates, right?
mm-hmm.
It was what you think it was. Just raise money. It's
Yeah,
all.
You
Let's
know they
see
are
where we can
actually
slide
going to
in
roll
something.
out. They're going to roll out Snap Premium. I don't know what that
yeah.
was supposed to
They
This
be.
is
sent
wait.
out. There's
Oh,
a
I
Snap
forgot there
Premium.
was a
I think they
premium.
sent requests to try for free, and yeah, and so I think Kwesi is right. I think I agree with you on this and why it's important. The app is going to change. They're going to find out creative ways to generate some money. And like we said,
Yeah,
we all talk about how pissed off would be, but Facebook went through the same thing. Well, we all loved it, and then it became half ads. And then we're like, we're going to Instagram. And then he's like, okay, I'm buying Instagram too, and you're still going to see my ads. And so at this point, it's like uh, with the product is bought, unless of course he's going to be like Facebook and sell your information to, I mean, he does that already, right? They sell your information to advertisers to better refine the advertisements for you. But he has to come up with creative ways to raise money. Else the app would either die out a natural death, which would be slow, and then something new will come up. People would move. I know if your boy has started slowly moving some of his stuff to TikTok. Um, she wants to be TikTok famous now.
Oh goodness,
I know
no.
Kwesi is moving some of his stuff to
No.
Telegram or Telegraph or whatever it is.
wait,
That's how
Telegram.
out of
and wait, and
Tele-
Telegram like a WhatsApp, like it's a messaging thing,
yeah,
right?
it's a
yeah. But
messaging
now
app.
it's like everybody keep. Even this week, someone asked me, "Do you have a Telegram?" I'm like, "No." Like, "Oh no, why?" I'm like, "I don't know," you know. But a lot of people would go elsewhere, or the experience would change. And I mean, it wouldn't be new with Twitter, because Twitter has introduced, even with the last administration, right? They had stuff we liked that they took away, stuff we didn't like that we still have to deal with. And so, I mean, now that it's private, we really would have no say. We would like the product as he changes it, or we don't like it, use something else. And I guess that would be the only component of free speech he brings. If you don't want to talk here, you can go talk somewhere else. If you don't want to tweet, find another way to get your message out. But for those who would like it, it will change. And I think that's what we should be ready for. It's going to change somehow, and we're going to have to deal with it.
Yep, we'll have to deal with it.
Need
I think
another, maybe another social media
platform.
app platform
And that is
for the.
why for us here at the tribe, we're going to encourage any tribe member who can develop an interface like that. Hey, We'd love to see it. We'd love to hop on it. We'd love to, you know, join you on there and make your brand big. But
Yep.
since that is not out yet, and we still have these three, these are handles down there. The handles are crawling down on the street, on the stream. It's at Kasa underscore the tribe. Now on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And funny enough, this week I was able to add a YouTube handle. So you go onto YouTube and you just search for Kasa underscore the tribe, and you're going to find the page and you're going to enjoy all our content. We've just been having a conversation about some things and why the tribe feel they matter. We talked about some of the things we hear in the news, like economic stuff, like things like inflation. Like, now that we're high finance people, if you're your boy and Kwesi took us through the grassroots elementary economics for us to understand some of these news items. We also touched on, politics, the things that people really want to stay away from these days. It's no longer a blue and a red kind of conversation anymore. Now it's getting heated. But we did have a conversation on politics, the things we look out for when we're listening to our political news, and the future of some of these things. And we landed on social media. We also talked about Twitter, Elon Musk, where we think it's going to go. If Yepa has very high hopes she's going to land a job with Elon Musk. So let's wish her all the best. Now that she's graduating and the birthday boy was also in the building, we dedicated this show to Kwesi and
What? What?
birthday man. And so, yes, but for those who were asking, I saw a tweet and a comment, and I'm going to respond to it. Michael is saying, what time is it? 2 or 3? Michael, today was the end of daylight savings. So we had to fall back. And so the time changed for our viewers here in the US, but I'm sure for those in Ghana, it stayed the same. We try not to inconvenience our listeners, our international listeners. So we move things around. So today, the Kasa podcast came to you 1 hour early if you're on the other side of the Greenwich. And if you're on the right side of the Greenwich, it was 1 hour late. We're so sorry you had to wait a little longer, but this here has been our show. We've talked about why it is important. And before we go, our next episode is going to be episode 69. Why is that important, guys? Why is it important, Kwesi? Why is episode 69 important?
That's our final episode for the year.
Yeah, right. That is not our final episode for the year. Don't
That's
listen
Oh,
to
our
us
really?
final
anymore.
episode for
We're
the
going
year.
to be having more
I don't know,
episodes.
because 69 is your favorite number. You played on the lotto or something? I don't know.
I don't know if it is mine, but if you're saying it is yours, then okay.
No, I thought you asked me why,
We
and
see
I'm
you.
like, oh,
We see
maybe
you.
play the Powerball, man. 69 is
Okay.
the
AY.
number.
69 is going to be a good show. It's going to be a very important show. Why is it going to be
I
important?
just told you because it's our final episode for the
AY,
year.
stop lying to the tribe.
I'm
It's
not
not going to be our
lying.
final episode, guys. But we're going to have one more Casa games for episode 69. We have the game, we're planning it, and AY thinks she's going to lose so bad. So if you don't want to miss her lose again, she lost on the Anansesem, she lost on the story time. She's been losing so many times
Oh
this season.
my god.
Her losing streak is going to continue unabated. And so
What
don't
kind
miss.
of games?
We're going to keep it a secret for the tribe members. They have to tune into our next episode and figure out what these games would be. But this has been our show for today, episode 68. And I'm happy. I learned a lot from these two amazing people. Thanks, Efia and Kwesi, for joining. And once again, from us here at the tribe, it's
Bye.
Bye.
bye.